Hey guys, after finishing 13 Sentinels, it is time to give it a review. For that, I'll be checking the usual topics: story, gameplay, graphics, and music. Be sure to look at the timestamps in case there's something specific you wanna check, and if you are here for a quick summary, just go to the final score section. So what is the premise of the story? The first visuals we can see is about a kind of broadcast, stating that huge objects start falling from the sky. The whole city is in distress, but despite that, two students are running in the opposite direction, and we can see how a young girl summons a robot. Seconds later, the image of a destroyed city is shown, along the words, "Our fate was sealed a long time ago." These big machines are controlled with the mind, at the cost of straining the user's mind. That's how Ayori starts confronting the enemies little by little. However, things start to look bad for her as she is ambushed. That's when suddenly another sentinel appears, and here right away we can see how Juro is confused with another person named Izumi? Nonetheless, he states that his name is Juro Kurabe. That's how this convoluted story begins, unlocking the first character out of 13 small stories. This game uses a quite interactive way to develop the plot, because you can control every main character, as you can see in the screen. So depending from your actions, you can unlock different parts of the chronicle. Some characters have straightforward stories, and some others loop in interesting ways. So if you don't like what you're seeing, this game may not be for you, because you will spend a good amount of time here. If I have to say, out of the 40 hours I played the game, around 28 were about its narrative, and 12 of gameplay. I don't want to spoil any bit of this story because, in all honesty, every single detail reveals a lot. This is not like some other games where you can say, "Sure, I'll skip these conversations, they are just filler." In this game, every single bit of text is linked to future events. So don't think about that unless you're here for the gameplay. But that will be a waste, as here they start throwing plot twists like mad, not so long after you begin the game. I am not going to say that this is a completely original idea, as some of these things have already been used in some other games, movies or books, but what I liked is that they reference those ones. So you will see the perspective of every sentinel, and how everything is being unfolded little by little. At first you will most likely have an idea of where everything is going, but after a couple of chapters that idea is radically changed, even touching peculiar subjects, and further descending into a spiral of darker and darker things. You may question morale, values, and some other things along the way, because the game is quite mature despite the main character's apparent age. My recommendation here will be, try to get a good weekend to play the game, because if you are a story-driven person who likes sci-fi stuff, most likely you will get engrossed with it. For me, it is a 10. Beginning to end, I enjoyed a lot. For the gameplay, we have to defend the terminal using different mechs. It may look confusing, but it is a rather simple idea. The blue lines marked around the blocks is where some enemies and units can move, and every attack has something like an area of effect. The game gives you hints about the upcoming battles, and they never feel unfair, unless you choose the wrong formation. Here they took a quite interesting approach, because you have battles of 2 minutes, or at least that is the in-game idea. Remember that I said that the pilots need to use their minds to operate these mechs? Well, they cannot get into several confrontations one after another. You can use 6 characters per battle, but after 2 fights, they'll have to rest for 1 battle to recover, so you have to plan accordingly. There are 4 generations of mechs. The first generation specializes in close quarter combat. The second is more like a hybrid between mid and close combat. The third is all about mid to long range combat, and the fourth generation says that it is for support, but it works quite well for mid to close combat depending from the character. Despite having several characters with the same role, they are a bit different one from another, as they can get special skills as you train them. You may question, is the game hard? I don't consider myself a hardcore player, perhaps a bit of experience here and there, but this game in normal difficulty felt easy. I never saw a game over or how it looks when you get an immobilized unit. This game relies on activation time and units speed. Enemies' attacks take some time before they start to deal damage, so you can plan your moves according to that. Just because you heard an alarm, it doesn't mean it is over, so you can counter almost everything. I could say that the bosses are the ones that may be a bit difficult, but it all depends once again from your character's formation. Nonetheless, if you have a decent idea of how each unit works, you can cheese every level real hard. A word of advice. Here you'll see that every character has different skills, but there are some that have something like a gauge. Once you increase 4 levels out of those skills, you will get a special move. Some of those moves are maybe not broken, but under specific circumstances they deal a lot of damage, so try to make characters synergize one another between the different skills that they have. Before and after the battle, pay attention to the characters' conversation because they are related to the tale. You will eventually see how they get linked, so try to advance on par between the remembrance and these waves. This game gives you almost complete freedom to choose between watching the story or going for its gameplay. Also, there is a section where you can use points obtained in every battle to unlock archives that will summarize the plot as you proceed on it, making it easier to understand once you have unlocked a good chunk of them. Its gameplay, despite being rather simple, it has some interesting ideas. I definitely enjoyed every battle. My preferred ones were once the last chapters start to roll, because they put you a bit on edge as you get swarmed quite fast. And if you consider yourself a hardcore player, straight up go for intense difficulty. For me, this category is an 8.5, solid mechanics and really entertaining. And even when you have finished the main game, there is a good number of new stages that you can play, so you can indulge much more time playing. For the graphics, the game throws a rather interesting idea for them. It is not your classic RPG where you either throw the content like a good chunk of visual novels, or the orthodox animation stuff. Actually, while playing the game and looking at the character portraits, I was thinking that it is kinda similar to what was shown in Bravely Default several years ago. And if you know where the inspiration from Bravely Default art came, you most likely will have the same idea for this one. If there is something that I would have liked to be different, is in its gameplay while defending the terminals. As it is shown, it is simple, and something I would have liked is to see how the mechs fight the kaijus, or something a bit more interactive. That was not a deal break for me, as I equally like the idea of something like a command center watching over every sentinel move. For me, the graphics are 9, they are really gorgeous. And for the music, it was composed by Bassescape and Hitoshi Sakimoto, where the main rhythms come from something like techno and a kind of interesting combination with funk. It is usually referred as future funk. Some examples that come to mind are Donkey Kong Country, Shantae, Mighty Switch Force. It is not the whole soundtrack, but it makes a good ambience whenever the game shows factories, futuristic levels, or the whole cyberpunk idea is thrown. Or at least that is my impression because of their arrangement in combat tracks with lots of melodic sounds. Which also have another cool thing. As the battle progresses, the soundtrack changes, so it is not like your usual game where you have a 2 minutes with 30 seconds track that loops over and over again. Here, as you progress, the tracks get immersive because while you're getting swarmed, they change a lot. That is for the combat tracks, and for the story, it's more about ambience. Some are quite catchy, but in general they accomplish their purpose really well, using sounds that are reminiscent to intrigue or things that are misunderstood. Maybe not the part of the soundtrack that I will listen on a regular basis compared to the combat themes. If you like electronic, give them a check, they are quite good. If there is something that I didn't like about this OST, was the addition to some kind of idol songs. They are not a deal break, but I would have preferred the whole OST to keep in line with the combat themes. Other than that, really good soundtrack, it is a 9. 13 Sentinels' final score is a 9.1. It is definitely a must if you like RPGs with strong sci-fi topics. Sure, it is heavily story driven, but it is not that long and every bit of it is interesting. If you are not into sci-fi or convoluted stories, I may not recommend this game for you, as that is what it is all about. It has a solid gameplay, but it is not as long and interactive as some other games, so you may not take that much time to finish every single wave the game shows. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.